In the beautiful city of Verona, two rich families lived. The Montagues and the Capulets were very important families, but they had a big problem. They hated each other very much. The families had been fighting for many years. Nobody could remember why the fight started. The feud made everyone in the city unhappy. Even their servants fought in the streets. This is a story about love and hate. It is about two young people who fell in love. But their family's anger would cause great sadness for everyone. Romeo Montague was a handsome young man of 16 years old. He lived with his parents in a big house in Verona. Romeo was kind and gentle, but he was also very sad. Romeo was in love with a girl named Rosaline, but Rosaline did not love him back. This made Romeo feel melancholy every day. He walked around the city thinking about her all the time. His friends Benvolio and Mercutio were worried about him. They wanted to help Romeo forget about Rosaline. They thought he needed to meet other girls and have fun. Lord Capulet decided to have a big party at his house. He invited many important people from Verona. The party was to celebrate and have fun with friends and family. Romeo's friend Benvolio heard about the party. He had an idea to help Romeo feel better. "Let's go to the party," he said. "You can see many beautiful girls there and forget about Rosaline." Romeo thought this was a foolish plan, but he agreed to go. They put on masks to hide their faces. This way, nobody would know they were Montagues. They walked to the Capulet house, excited but also nervous about the party. Juliet Capulet was almost 14 years old. She was very beautiful with long dark hair and bright eyes. She lived happily with her parents and her nurse, who took care of her like a mother. Juliet's father wanted her to marry Count Paris, a rich and important man. But Juliet was still very young. She was not ready to think about marriage yet. The idea made her feel anxious about her future. Her mother and the nurse told her that Paris was a good man. They said she should be happy to marry him. But Juliet wanted to choose her own husband when she was older. At the Capulet party, there was music, dancing, and delicious food. Many people were having a wonderful time. Romeo and his friends watched from the corner, looking at all the beautiful ladies. Then Romeo saw Juliet dancing. She was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. His heart began to beat very fast. At that moment, he forgot all about Rosaline. This feeling was overwhelming and completely new to him. Romeo walked across the room to talk to Juliet. When their eyes met, Juliet felt the same strong feeling. They both knew immediately that this was true love, different from anything they had felt before. Romeo took Juliet's hand and spoke to her gently. "Your hand is so soft and beautiful," he said. "May I kiss it?" Juliet smiled and said yes, feeling her heart beat faster. They talked quietly in the corner of the party room. Romeo told her she was like a bright star in the dark sky. Juliet thought his words were very eloquent and sweet. They felt like they had known each other for years. Then Romeo kissed Juliet softly on the lips. It was both of their first real kiss. At that moment, they both knew they were deeply in love, though they didn't yet know each other's names. After their kiss, Romeo and Juliet were interrupted by other people at the party. They had to separate, but they both wanted to know more about each other. Romeo asked someone who the beautiful girl was. When he learned she was Juliet Capulet, he felt devastated. She was from his family's worst enemy. Juliet also asked about the handsome young man and learned he was Romeo Montague. Both young people realized they had fallen in love with someone from the wrong family. Their love seemed impossible, but the feeling was so strong that they couldn't stop thinking about each other. That night, Romeo couldn't sleep. He walked through the streets of Verona until he reached the Capulet house. He climbed over the wall into their garden. Romeo looked up and saw Juliet standing on her balcony. She was looking at the stars and thinking about him. The moonlight made her look even more beautiful. Romeo felt enchanted as he watched her from below. Juliet began to speak to herself about Romeo. She said she loved him even though he was a Montague. Romeo listened carefully to every word she said, happy to know she felt the same way. Romeo called softly to Juliet from the garden. She was surprised but very happy to see him. "How did you climb over our high wall?" she asked with a smile. "Love gave me wings," Romeo answered. They talked for a long time about their feelings. Juliet told him that their love was dangerous, but also very precious to her. She was worried about what their families would do. Before Romeo left, they promised to love each other forever. Juliet said that if Romeo really loved her, he should marry her. Romeo agreed immediately. They decided to meet the next day to make plans. The next morning, Romeo went to see Friar Lawrence, a wise old priest who was his friend. The friar lived in a small house near the church and knew many things about plants and medicine. Romeo told the friar about his love for Juliet and asked him to perform their wedding ceremony. Friar Lawrence was surprised by this sudden change. He remembered how sad Romeo had been about Rosaline. "Young men's love is often fickle," he said thoughtfully. But then the friar had an idea. Maybe if Romeo and Juliet got married, their families would stop fighting. The marriage could bring peace to Verona. He agreed to help them, hoping for the best. Romeo met Juliet's nurse in the market square. The nurse was a kind woman who loved Juliet like her own daughter. She wanted to help the young couple be happy. Romeo gave the nurse a message for Juliet. He told her to come to Friar Lawrence's church that afternoon. There they would be married in secret. The nurse thought this plan was very bold, but she promised to help. The nurse hurried back to tell Juliet the good news. Juliet was so excited that she could hardly wait for the afternoon to come. She trusted Romeo completely and was ready to become his wife. That afternoon, Romeo and Juliet met at Friar Lawrence's church. They were both nervous but very happy. The small church was quiet and peaceful, with flowers and candles everywhere. Friar Lawrence performed the wedding ceremony with only the nurse as a witness. Romeo and Juliet promised to love each other forever, no matter what happened. Their love felt sacred and pure in that holy place. After the ceremony, they were officially husband and wife, but they had to keep their marriage secret from their families. They planned to tell everyone the truth when the time was right. The next day, Romeo was walking through the town square, feeling very happy about his secret marriage. He saw his friend Mercutio talking with Tybalt, Juliet's hot-tempered cousin. Tybalt was angry because he had recognized Romeo at the Capulet party. He wanted to fight Romeo for coming to their house uninvited. But Romeo didn't want to fight because Tybalt was now his cousin-in-law. Tybalt's anger seemed irrational to Romeo, who only wanted peace. Mercutio was angry that Romeo wouldn't defend himself. He decided to fight Tybalt instead. The two young men drew their swords and began to fight in the busy street. Romeo tried to stop the fight between Mercutio and Tybalt. He stepped between them, hoping to make peace. But this was a terrible mistake that changed everything. While Romeo was trying to separate them, Tybalt's sword accidentally stabbed Mercutio under Romeo's arm. Mercutio fell to the ground, badly wounded. The accident was catastrophic for everyone involved. Mercutio died in Romeo's arms, cursing both the Montague and Capulet families. Romeo was filled with anger and sadness. His best friend was dead because of the family feud he had tried to avoid. Romeo was so angry about Mercutio's death that he forgot about peace and love. He drew his sword and challenged Tybalt to fight. Tybalt accepted, and they began to fight fiercely. Romeo fought with all his strength, thinking only of his dead friend. In his rage, he killed Tybalt with his sword. The moment Tybalt fell, Romeo realized what he had done. His action was irreversible and would have terrible consequences. The Prince of Verona arrived and heard what had happened. As punishment for killing Tybalt, he banished Romeo from Verona forever. If Romeo ever returned, he would be executed immediately. When Juliet heard the news, she was heartbroken. Her cousin Tybalt was dead, and her husband Romeo was banished from Verona. She felt torn between her family and her love. At first, she was angry with Romeo for killing her cousin. But then she realized that Tybalt would have killed Romeo if Romeo hadn't defended himself. Her emotions were turbulent as she tried to understand what had happened. Juliet knew she might never see her husband again. The thought of living without Romeo made her feel like dying. She cried all day and night, unable to eat or sleep. Friar Lawrence helped Romeo hide in his cell until night came. Then Romeo secretly climbed up to Juliet's balcony to say goodbye before leaving Verona forever. Romeo and Juliet spent their first and last night together as husband and wife. They talked, cried, and held each other close. Every moment was bittersweet because they knew it might be their last time together. When morning came, Romeo had to leave. They said goodbye with heavy hearts, not knowing if they would ever meet again. Romeo promised to find a way to come back to her someday. After Romeo left, Juliet's parents told her she must marry Count Paris in 3 days. They thought this would make her happy and help her forget about her sadness over Tybalt's death. Juliet begged her parents not to make her marry Paris. She said she was too young and not ready for marriage. But she couldn't tell them the real reason, that she was already married to Romeo. Her situation seemed hopeless with no way out. Her parents were angry that she refused to obey them. They said if she didn't marry Paris, they would throw her out of the house and never speak to her again. Juliet ran to Friar Lawrence for help. She was desperate and said she would rather die than marry Paris while she was already married to Romeo. Friar Lawrence had a dangerous plan. He gave Juliet a special medicine that would make her appear dead for 2 days. Her family would put her in the family tomb, thinking she was dead. Then Romeo could come back and take her away when she woke up. The plan was ingenious but very risky. Juliet was frightened, but she agreed to try the plan. She took the medicine home, planning to drink it the night before her wedding to Paris. Juliet drank the medicine and appeared to die. Her family was heartbroken and put her in the tomb. But the message explaining the plan never reached Romeo in his exile. When Romeo heard that Juliet was dead, he was devastated. He bought poison and rushed back to Verona. He found Juliet in the tomb, looking peaceful as if she were sleeping. Her beauty was still radiant even in apparent death. Romeo drank the poison and died beside his beloved wife. Just then, Juliet woke up and found Romeo dead. Unable to live without him, she took his dagger and killed herself. When their families found them together, they finally understood that their hatred had destroyed the two young people who had loved each other more than life itself. From that day on, the Montagues and Capulets ended their feud and lived in peace.